fine. They already got it teed up for us, so we're good. Yeah, it is a little bit bright out here. Oh, of course. So I guess we're going to need to go over there to get do the same thing. Hand over. I'll sort it out.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Okay. No, that has to be. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Yes.
They already got it teed up. Yep. 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 Yeah, once it comes up on the screen, we should move the clicker and everything else. We did try to play it to make sure that the videos work. Yeah. Well, if you go to the second, so you can't even go to the second. So the program advances to the second slide.
Call to order the New Kent County Board of Supervisors, December 12, 2022 meeting to order. Ms. Teller, will you lead us in an invocation and pledge, please?
Yes, sir.
Please stand.
Last part. Most kind and gracious Heavenly Father, we thank you for today and we thank you for this season of the year. For this season is the time that we celebrate for you, and it's a time of giving and a time of blessings. Be with us now as we conduct this meeting and see that we do in a manner that's most pleasing to you. For these things we ask in your name. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Mr. Tiller. Ms. Watkins, will you call the roll, please?
Mr. Evelyn?
Here.
Mr. Tiller?
Here.
Ms. Page? Here. Mr. Steers?
Here.
And Mr. Lockwood?
Here.
Welcome, everyone, this evening to our December meeting. Welcome back, Ms. Page. We're so glad that you're here, looking great. All right, with that, we'll go into the meeting. First item is the consent agenda. Any questions, concerns, changes to the consent agenda? Comments?
Mr. Chairman,
Ms. Tiller?
I move to approve the consent agenda as presented and that it be made part of a record.
Thank you, Ms. Tiller. Any comments? Ms. Watkins, will you poll the members, please?
Mr. Tiller?
Aye.
Ms. Page? Aye. Mr. Steers?
Aye.
Mr. Lockwood?
Aye.
And Mr. Evelyn?
Aye. Is there a small business close-up? Next is the citizens' comment period. No one signed up? Everybody's happy with the job we're doing. That's good. All right, I'll close the citizens' comment period. Next is residency administrator's report.
Good evening, Mr. Hathaway, Mr. Chair, members of the board. My name is Mark Harlow. I'll be giving a report tonight from VDOT. Hopefully you've had an opportunity to go over our report that was sent in this past month. We've completed our final mow cycle to our primary routes, so all of our mowing is completed for the year. We continue to repair potholes, work on drainage, ditching, pipe replacement, and pipe repairs. We've been pruning back vegetation, limbs, litter removal, and shoulder repair. This past month, we received 117 work requests, completed 112 with 0 emergency call-outs. Just wanted to make sure that you guys were aware that the signs were installed in Eltham on Route 33. The pavement marking has begun. They haven't finished it yet, but it should be completed by this week, weather permitting. We hope it'll stay dry. So that's about all I got. If you guys have anything for me.
All right, thank you. Mr. Steers?
Yes, sir. Thanks for being here. I was expecting Mr. Wynn because I had a couple things I was going to tell. But anyway, the temporary roundabout at 155 and Kentland Trail seems to have calmed down. People are getting used to it. They finally figured which way to go around. That's one good thing. The biggest complaints I still get is people going northbound on 155. And I've tried to tell Philip Frazier, that you have a sign that says 45 miles an hour, and 50 yards you got a sign that says 45 miles an hour, and then you got a sign that says 25 in a roundabout. And that's why the people are coming through there, speeding. They feel like they own the road. They have people yielding to them, and they have the right of way.
Okay.
And please, tell Philip Fraser it's time to get out of the book and use some common sense. That's all it takes. Take down the 45-mile-an-hour speed limit sign and put up a sign that says 25 ahead, and I think that'll slow the traffic down.
Okay. I will pass that along.
Please.
And you know that we have to go through our traffic engineer and people to do some of that. So we'll do our best.
Well, I would appreciate it, and so would the citizens that come through there. They'd appreciate it. Other than that, I appreciate everything you guys have done for us this year. You've done quite a bit of work in New Kent County. We appreciate it, and we wish you and your family a Merry Christmas.
Same to you, Ron. Thank you.
Ms. Tiller?
I have absolutely nothing.
Mr. Lockwood?
I just would like to thank Jeff and Joe for getting done that final pavement there on Triangle Road. That was kind of a mess. So, and thank you for getting the speed signs and pavement markings down in Eltham. So hopefully that'll help reduce speeds through there a little bit. Actually, it does, and it's marked on the pavement, and hopefully the rumple strips won't drive people too crazy. So, but thank you, and also Merry Christmas to you and your crew. Thank
Same
you,
here.
guys.
Ms. Page?
Oh, yes, I do. First of all, good evening. Thank you for all you do for this great county. I asked Mr. Wynn to check to see if they had done an estimate at the 106 area management plan, which is the widening of the bridge.
Yes, ma'am.
And you can just let him know he didn't call me, he didn't email me, and I was waiting diligently, and I still am. So I don't know if that's going to be my Christmas gift from him or what. But if he could do that, I would appreciate it so much. And I sort of need it now.
Okay. All right. I will get with him on that.
Yeah. So Merry Christmas to all, and please be safe during this holiday season.
All right. You too, man. Thank you.
I'd just like to thank you all for jumping out there on Hopewell Road when you could patch that up. And when it warms up this spring and summertime, I wouldn't mind going out there and taking a look around with you guys and seeing what you think we could do on that. That's the only road in my district I'm getting a few complaints on. So besides that, everything's good. And like my colleague said, thanks for all you've done for the county, and wish you and all your families a Merry Christmas.
Okay. Same to y'all. Y'all have a good holiday. All right.
It's my understanding a gentleman walked in here a few minutes ago that wanted to speak on the citizens' comment period. If you'd like to come up and speak, we're just moving a little quick tonight. just for the record, would you please just state your name and address? And
Good evening. My name is William Mark Smith. Address is 4240 Holly Fork Road, Burnfield, Mr. Lockwood's district. I want to speak about the highways in New Kent County as a whole. The highways are terrible. They need widening. You got school buses, a lot of traffic, big trucks up and down the road all the time. There's 5 schools from the courthouse to Bottom Bridge. It's going to be an accident, and somebody's going to get killed. There's already been 5 accidents on Farmers Drive. People have been killed. Nothing being done. It don't make sense. You can build roundabouts near the wineries, but you can't take time to widen these highways. It's sad. Also, the highway in Brownsville, Tabernacle Road, and Holly Fork Road come together in the, I guess my address is 4240. It moved the stop sign from the center of the road on Holly Fork Road to the right side of the Tabernacle Road. There's other roadside, and it's in a sharp curve. People can't see that stop sign, and it don't make sense to have the stop sign where it is. It's been on Tabernacle Road for years and years. People are not stopping. They barely stopped when the sign was where it was before. And very seldom anybody stopped. I walk that highway 2 or 3 times a week or more if the weather's good. People come around there. It's a lot of traffic in the Brownsville area. It's not safe. And also, we need more affordable housing in New Kent County. I don't know whose responsibility to take care of that, but it's in the papers all the time. Even the big cities are looking at affordable housing. New Kent is a sad county. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have a few presentations this evening. The first presentation is the Central Virginia Transportation Authority. Mr. Carroll.
Good evening, honorable sir, members of the New Kent County Board of Supervisors. My name is Kevin Carroll. I am also with the Chesterfield County Board of Supervisors. But today I'm in here in my capacity as the chair of the Central Virginia Transportation Authority. And Chet Parsons, who's with me, is the acting executive director for the CVTA as well. And I'm going to start the presentation off and then hand it off to Chet, and then I'll come back and finish up. For those who may be in the audience and watching at home, the purpose of this presentation really is to be informational for the community, certainly for your community, as to all that has transpired in the last couple of years with the CVTA. And so I'm going to, we'll start out with a video presentation, which I am crossing my fingers will play. And then Chet will take over from there, and then I will talk with the rest of you in just a few minutes. Chet.
Maintaining a safe and efficient transportation system is a critical part of our region's continued prosperity and quality of life. In Central Virginia, we have a new tool to support our vast network of roads and highways, but also our sidewalks, trails, and transit services. The Central Virginia Transportation Authority was created by the General Assembly in 2020. Delegate Dolores McQuinn sponsored the legislation. It became law with the support of Senator Jennifer McClellan. 1 year later, the authority has generated $137 million. Officials have begun identifying priorities and needs, like repaving or widening roads, or improving intersections to make them safer for motorists and pedestrians. Here's how the CVTA works. Consumers pay slightly higher taxes on fuel and other purchases. Sales and use tax, 0.7%, a wholesale gas tax, 7.6 cents per gallon of gasoline, 7.7 cents per gallon of diesel fuel. These funds are reserved to address transportation needs in our area. The CVTA serves Planning District 15, which consists of the town of Ashland, the city of Richmond, and the counties of Charles City, Chesterfield, Goochland, Hanover, Henrico, New Kent, and Powhatan. Locally elected officials serve on the authority's board. For every dollar raised, 50 cents are returned to the municipalities for their transportation projects. 35 cents go to regional projects, and 15 cents support regional transit. As the CVTA marked its first anniversary, it identified its first regional project. The Fall Line Trail will be a path for bicyclists, joggers, and others, similar to the Virginia Capitol Trail. It will stretch north and south between Ashland and Petersburg, crossing 5 of the 9 CVTA localities. Its first section opened this year in Ashland, and other portions are under design. The reality is, without the CVTA, important projects like the Fall Line Trail would have to wait years to proceed. Our state and federal governments provide localities with funds for transportation. However, those dollars are increasingly needed for basic maintenance. For years, Northern Virginia and Hampton Roads have used similar authorities to address congestion and other transportation needs. Now, thanks to the CVTA, Central Virginia is better equipped to keep our region vibrant and on the move.
So we can either go off your laptop, Chet, or we can get them to pull it back up on what they have on the inside, whatever's easier. Let me see if I can get them to cue it back up. They'll have it up and running in a minute. In the meantime, I do want to say that for those at home, those in the audience, your representative, as you know, on the board is Patricia Page, and I will tell you that working with her has been a real treat. It has been a real treat. Don't say that. She is a great and advocate, passionate person for New Kent, and you should be very happy to. I think you picked the right person to put on there. She represents you very, 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 very well, and she doesn't let me get away with anything.
That don't surprise us. She don't let us either.
But that's good. So, and I think one of the other things that we'll talk about too is how good the teamwork has been within the framework. You know, considering that we have 9 jurisdictions that are all working together on this, not to mention members of the General Assembly and members of other agencies, which we're going to talk about as soon as we get this up. And I'm pretty good at stalling, as you can see. It's important, I think, and this is, I think, the 5th time we've come to a different board to do this, for the communities to really see what the CVTA has actually been working on in the last couple of years, specifically for your jurisdiction. I don't believe if the CVTA had not been put together, and certainly if we didn't have Ms. Page pushing very hard, we may not have been as effective in getting, or even getting done, what we are going to talk about with the 64 widening project. I think we broke your system. As the security alerts and everything else going on here. But that being said, and I will touch base a little bit about the 64 project, and we cover it in the slide. But you know, we were able to get the General Assembly to set aside $320 million in funds between the House and the Senate, and another $150 million in reserve funds, meaning if there's a surplus at the end of the year, that money is actually going to go towards the 64 widening project. And then VDOT put in for $150 million through a federal grant program, and with Ms. Page's urging, we were able to get the CVTA to put up $100 million. And in the last meeting that we just had, we actually went over our pay schedule for all of the projects over the next through 2028. And the reason that programming was important is, besides the other 30 or so projects that we funded, we needed to make sure that based on their timing that we could program out how the money would be allocated for the projects. And we actually voted on that the other day to make sure that we had the money allocated out earlier for the 64 widening project. I think they want $60 million a little bit earlier from us. And I know based on how we programmed it out the other day, we'll be able to do that. And even if we have to make some modifications and change our pay schedule from pay-go to issue bonds, we'll still be able to make it all work. You ready to come up? You do it wherever you want. I think I could actually hand him the mic. Yeah. Mm-hmm. There you go. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Carroll. I got a brief introduction. I'm Chet Parsons, Director of Transportation at Plan RVA. I'm the Acting Executive Director of the CBTA. Thank you so much for having us here tonight. Appreciate your patience with the technical difficulties. As you heard in the video, a lot of the background of the authority is fresh. It's brand new. It was created in 2020 through the Act of the General Assembly. It has 9 jurisdictions as voting members, and also additional voting members, the Virginia House of Delegates, the Senate, and the Commonwealth Transportation Board. Mr. Carlos Brown is this region's representative on the CTB, and they all have voting seats on the authority. In addition, we have non-voting members representing all of our partner organizations like VDOT, Department of Rail and Public Transit, the Airport Authority, the Port, RMTA, and GRTC, as well as some others that attend from time to time. We do have 2 main funding sources for funds for the authority, a regional sales tax and a regional gas tax. As you can guess, the gas tax is a little bit more dynamic than the sales tax. The sales tax is really solid, and that's really where we've seen really great revenues for the last couple years. The gas taxes, we have to watch it, and it really depends on a lot of things like, fuel efficiency and how much people are buying gas, the types of cars they're buying these days. So it's nice to have both of those revenue sources as part of our income. In our region, the authority divides out the funds 3 different ways, which is a difference between the Northern Virginia and Hampton Roads regions. They have different mechanisms for accessing the revenue. In our case, 50%, half of all the funds collected go back to the local jurisdictions. So that's a huge difference between us and the other authorities in the state. The CBTA receives 35%, which is set aside for big, regionally significant projects. And I'll have a little bit more information on that in a few minutes. And then GRTC, our transit company in town, gets 15%, and they are supposed to use that 15% for regionally significant public transportation. So not just the fixed route bus service that GRTC operates. They are required through the legislation that created the authority to look at public transportation that meets the needs of all 9 jurisdictions in our region, including New Kent. We got our start about halfway through 2020 after the General Assembly created the authority. And in the span of time between then and now, we have taken some major actions. There was a first commitment of funds in December of 2021 to establish $104.5 million to set aside for the Fall Line Regional Trail, plus additional funds set aside for the 4 jurisdictions that didn't have a direct impact from the Fall Line geographically, and that includes New Kent, Charles City, Powhatan, and Goochland. And then in May of this year, the CBTA committed a second round of funds in the amount of $276 million for another 30 regional projects. Soon after that, the authority committed an additional set of funds for the, well, I'm going through all these, the regional partner projects from that first round of commitments. New Kent saw $200,000 set aside for the Bottoms Bridge Park and Ride. So that was a project that was highlighted there in that first round of commitments in December of 2021. And then we have a regional framework for establishing what a regional project is, the types of things that are applicable, to set aside, the big types of projects that are the types of things that the 35% funding could go towards. And those are things like traffic, safety issues, corridors of statewide significance, which is a term that VDOT uses when they're doing their statewide planning processes. We look at equity and accessibility, economic development, which is a big driver for a lot of the funding these days. And then we score and rank all of our projects in that 35% silo, so that it isn't a a political decision. It's not a decision that's made based on who's in the room at the time. It's really focused on the data and what the data tells us as professionals in terms of the impacts that a project might have on not just the jurisdiction, but the entire region. So that's a big departure from how decisions have been made even in the last 10 years, not let alone 20 or 30 years ago. The projects that were funded in May of 2022 are highlighted on the map, and they're all in dark green, so they're really kind of spots on the map. But you can see that there is a pretty wide distribution of projects that are represented in that 30 project pot. And those are listed here in the table, again, totaling about $276 million. I'm sure everybody can read that. I think that the thing to highlight here is that in addition to that $276 million, the CVTA took special action to set aside and commit $100 million in future funds for the widening of I-64, that 29-mile gap that everybody here is super aware of. And the estimated total cost of that project, if it hasn't come before you, is about $800 million. So it's not cheap. So the $100 million that the CVTA committed is a pretty significant match against the state revenue that the General Assembly set aside, a $150 million federal grant that VDOT has applied for, as well as possible support from a couple other locations that's pending. But I think the project is well on its way. We did learn in my other hat at the TPO last month, the TIP was amended, the Transportation Improvement Program was amended so that the planning and engineering work could be begun on this section. So VDOT is moving now and committing funds as we speak to get that project kicked off. So we're excited about the opportunity to get this done. And I know Ms. Page is as well. In addition to the 35% and the transit funding, as I said, 50% goes back to local jurisdictions. And based on the feedback we've gotten from local staff, which is really a big component of how we do business, is getting the word from local planning and engineering staff. There are 11 projects in New Kent that are planned, totaling right now $2.3 million in local CVTA money. So out of those revenues that you all have received, there's 11 projects in the works that are committed through that funding. The video mentioned it briefly, but a big part of CVTA funding, no matter what the category is, whether it's local funds or GRTC or regional, is to leverage additional dollars. As you know, there's a smart scale program that VDOT runs, and the name of the game is make sure you put as much local money in as you can so that it appears like a better project so that you can receive more match money from the state. The same type of thing with the Infrastructure and Jobs Act that Congress passed this past fall. It's a huge deal to be able to say, we've got skin in the game and we're going to be putting our local money in or our regional money in against a possible grant opportunity. Because if you're doing that and somebody from another state, for example, isn't, and they're depending mostly on the federal dollars, you're going to win every time. So this is it's a great tool to have CVTA money available to do that type of work. The planned projects I've got listed on the screen here. I'm sure many of those are familiar, if not all, to the folks that are in the room and watching at home. And I think it's important to note the last item there, transportation engineering. You don't just have to fund projects with it. If you have staffing needs, as long as it's transportation focused, the CVTA money is allowed to be used for that. So you can generate capacity here within the county, as well as go out and put bricks and mortar in place. I think the final thing to note here, I mentioned it briefly, out of that 15% that GRTC receives, they are required to do a regional public transportation plan. Which they have started their first draft of that, and it's been approved by the authority. They also are looking at pilot projects. Right now, they're wrapping up a microtransit study, which is essentially looking at other means for providing public transportation to jurisdictions and localities that don't have a fixed route bus. So if you don't have a regular bus service from GRTC, this could be that connection between where that route ends and destinations for a lot of the residents in the county. And it's also a possible tie-in, and we've had conversations about this, between GRTC, some type of local microtransit service, and another provider like Bay Transit. So to make your connections across the region to the Tidewater, if that's a desirable effect. And with that, I'm going to turn it back over to Mr. Carroll.
Thank you, Chet. Thank you for your indulgence on this. One of the things that we didn't say in there, which I think is important for the community to know, is because no one wants to pay higher taxes. Let's say that right up front. But the numbers that we're looking at from the fuel sales and the retail sales, Northern Virginia and Tidewater are already getting this money. As an example, the Hampton Roads Transportation Authority gets $200 million a year generated from their authority from those sales. They turned that $200 million into over $6.2 billion by leveraging it with both state funds and federal funds for their transportation projects, $3.65 billion, which is for the new tunnel they're building. Central Virginia couldn't compete. We did not have the ability to match funds like Northern Virginia and Tidewater. And so even though our transportation authorities, which was our TPOs, for example, or our planning districts would submit projects and the localities would submit projects, unless we had matching funds to put in there, we couldn't compete with what they're doing. Now we can. And what, for those at home and those in the audience, that gives your locality, these leaders right here, the opportunity to compete to fix your roads that need fixing. Even though most of the roads, and quite frankly, in New Kent, the same in Chesterfield, that they are state maintained and the state's responsible for them, there are other projects that pop up that need attention within the communities. And so this gives your elected leaders here in New Kent an opportunity to have additional funds that they didn't have before to make road improvements. And I think it's a distinction that is lost when people say, well, why did we really need this transportation authority in the first place? And with that, I will say thank you for having us today and would answer any questions that you may have.
Thank you for taking time to come out and visit with us. Does any board member have any questions or comments?
Just a comment. Thank you, Ms. Carroll, for coming out this evening, and I'm glad Mr. Smith is here to hear the presentation, because for the first time in our county's history, we have an opportunity for generating the funds and creating the revenue that we can make the kinds of improvements that Mr. Smith is referring to. So I'm glad he's here. I'm glad you're here this evening as well, and thank you for the presentation.
You're welcome, sir.
I just wanted to say to Chairman Carroll and also to Mr. Parsons that I can truly say the leadership with Central Virginia Transportation Authority, that the authority has been and continues to be good stewards over our taxpayers' dollars. I am grateful for the forward thinking and the support that not only is rendered, because we hear all about the big four, but it's rendered to the rural localities, and that our voices are heard. And so I'm very grateful for that. And even more so to know that I think when we did the letter of support for I-64 for the $100 million, they were thinking that the first amount would be like 2025, and then to come back and say, hey, we need it now, and for the authority to look at that and be able to rearrange or work out funding so that that project that is probably about 30 years old, overdue, could happen. So for that, it makes it a board that I'm very proud to sit on, and I am very appreciative Chairman Carroll, of your leadership, and also you, Mr. Parsons. Thank you. And thank you for being here tonight. And I won't tell them that you were real long-winded.
I was real long-winded? No. Well, thank you. And one last thing, I will say that the revenue projections that were forecasted by VDOT are actually up. We were a little slightly down in the first year, but the projections are actually over by $20 million in the second year. And for the people watching at home, why is that important? It means every time a truck pulls off of 64 and gas is up in New Kent, you're getting some of that money for transportation in your jurisdiction. We didn't get that before. Every time someone pulls off and goes to a grocery store or goes to a restaurant or utilizes something here, before you didn't get anything, now you are. And so it's the future is very bright for the Central Virginia, for the CVTA, and for many future projects in the future to help with transportation. So thank you very much, members of the board.
Thank you. Next item is the presentation of FY 2022 Annual Comprehensive Financial Report. Megan Albright.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the board. She will be joining us by phone, so just a second and I will connect her.
Please announce yourself. Hi, can you guys hear me all right?
Yes, we can. Hello.
Hi, how's everyone doing?
Well,
Awesome. All right, I'll jump in and go ahead and get started. So I know the agenda says that Megan will be presenting, but my name is Rebecca Gunden, and I am a senior associate at Brown Edwards, with this being my 5th municipal audit season. And as you probably noticed, my name is super close to your Rebecca Guthrie. So throughout this presentation, you'll just hear me refer to her as Guthrie. That's what I tend to call her. First off, I do want to take a minute to thank Guthrie, Mei Ling, and their team within the finance department, as well as the team that's over at the schools and the EDA, for all of their hard work that they put in during the audit. We ask a lot of questions and we ask for a lot of supporting documentation, but they handle it very well in addition to their normal job responsibilities. I know you all do not have drafts of the report in front of you right now, which is not ideal, but I will be informing you of what you will be seeing once we issue the final report. And also as a side note, currently the plan is still to submit to the state by the deadline of Thursday, December 15th. However, Guthrie and I are both maintaining an open line of communication. And if there's ever a point either party feels that we just simply cannot pull it off, then we'll notify the other. And Guthrie has actually had some communications with the state a little bit already. Okay, so switching gears and going into what we will be issuing, we will be issuing a clean opinion on the financial statements, and that's the opinion that you want. It means that the financials are accurate in all material respects. And then when you get hard copies of the report or the PDF of the report, if you go to the back, there's also going to be a report on internal control. And again, that's way towards the back. You have to scroll a little ways. While we don't express an opinion on internal control, we do like to communicate significant items that we find. And this year, we did have a material weakness that came up because we found and had to make some pretty large journal entries related to an EDA agreement. However, those entries have been made and they're reflected in the final numbers. So ultimately, the numbers within the financial statements are still materially correct. We also issue 2 different letters. The first letter is what we call the management letter. And we use this letter as a way to communicate any potential areas of improvement. So that might be a letter you guys, you all might have some takeaways from and like to look at in detail once you get copies. And then the second letter that we send over and that we issue is the letter to those charged with governance, which is you all, the board. And this letter discusses any estimates that are used in the financials, and it also includes a summary of all the journal entries that we made, plus any journal entries that we found but management ultimately decided not to make because they were immaterial, both individually and in total. And attached to that letter, there's another letter. We like letters. But attached to that letter, there's going to be a letter that's actually from management, and it's to us, the auditors. And that's going to be signed by Guthrie, Mr. Hathaway, and other members from the schools and the EDA. And essentially that letter includes everything that management is taking responsibility for. And it includes, high-level things like management is saying we aren't aware of any fraud, we've been totally truthful to you, we've given you everything you've asked for, and so on and so forth. So those are the different reports and letters we are going to be issuing. And now I want to switch gears just a little bit to talk briefly about a new accounting standard that went into effect this year. And it's called GASB 87, which addresses leases. So in short and super high level, the county had to go and find all of their leases and record an asset and a liability for those because, one, first of all, they're using the asset day in and day out as if they own it. And 2, they have future payments that they have to make on these leases, so the liability needs to be reflected. And that was a huge standard. And I know that my high-level summary right there made it sound super easy, but it took a ton of time for clients and for us as the auditors. And I want to commend Guthrie and her team for the time and effort that they put into implementing this new standard, and they successfully implemented it. A lot of clients opted to use software to track their leases, which is great, but I just want to brag on Guthrie, and I can say that her and her team have a way better and just a more in-depth understanding of the standard than some other clients may have that were relying heavily on the software to do that heavy lifting. So honestly, that's all I wanted to touch on. I went over what we will be issuing and then the big standard this year. Are there any questions that you guys have for me?
Anybody have any questions for Rebecca? Ms. Page?
Mr. Chair, I don't have a question. However, I do have a comment. My comment is this paperwork is supposed to be submitted by Thursday?
Correct.
And so it's being presented to the board, and so we're listening, but we don't have any hard copies, anything. Is it because of this new leasing standard that we have not gotten the actual documents that are going to be submitted?
That was a big part of it. that standard was a beast to implement, to put it lightly. So that put us behind, put finance behind, and it's not just New Kent County. It's across the board. It's everyone. This year was just significantly harder because of this new standard that we had to implement. A lot of new procedures, a lot of extra work. So that's why we're a little behind in terms of getting something for you all to look at for this presentation. But like I said, the goal is still to present or to submit to the state by Thursday.
So just so I'm clear, New Kent has done its part in making sure that we've met the standards and everything is ready for submission. We're just waiting on your part?
Correct. Right now, it's being reviewed and it needs to go through our typing and checking team. It's not to a point where we wanted to present it to the board for you guys to review to look at, because there are still some changes and some tweaks that are going to come from partners as they look at it. But all the audit procedures are done, in the opinions, notes, financial statements, they're substantially done as well.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Yes.
They do have to give a presentation to the board before that project is submitted. I mean, for that project, with that presentation is presented. It's part of the process. Am I correct?
Yes, the state actually requires us to present the audit by December 31st. That's the only reason that we're presenting today without a draft, because you don't have a work session to present.
Okay.
Anybody else have anything? All right. Thank you, Rebecca and Rebecca.
All righty.
All right.
Thank you.
All right. Next, I think we have a closed session we're going to go into. Mr. Hefty is speaking for. Oh, you have it, Mr. Mr. Tiller.
I have a motion. Mr. Chairman, I move to go into closed session pursuant to 2.2-3711A.1 of the Code of Virginia for discussion and consideration of a prospective candidate for employment involving the planning director position.
Thank you, Ms. Tiller. Any comments? Ms. Watkins, will you poll the members, please?
Ms. Page? Aye. Mr. Steers? Aye. Mr. Lockwood?
Aye.
Mr. Tiller?
Aye.
And Mr. Evelyn?
Aye. We'll be going closed session for a few minutes, and then we'll come back out and start with our public hearings at 7 o'clock or soon after.
Good. And you and I have a monthly recess.
Motion to come back into open session. Thank you, Mr. Teller. Ms. Watkins, will you poll the members?
Mr. Steers?
Aye.
Mr. Lockwood?
Aye.
Mr. Tiller?
Aye.
Ms. Page? And Mr. Evelyn?
Right. Certification, reading, please.
We need a certification, Mr. Chairman, by roll call vote that only the matter identified in the motion to convene in closed session and lawfully permitted to be discussed under the Virginia Freedom of Information Act was heard, discussed, or considered.
Thank you, Mr. Steers. Ms. Watkins, will you poll the members?
Mr. Lockwood?
Aye.
Mr. Tiller?
Aye.
Ms. Page? Mr. Steers?
Aye.
And Mr. Evelyn?
Aye. Back in open session. Our next item this evening is the New Kent County 2023 legislative agenda. Mr. Hathaway, we looked at this 2 or 3 times. Does anybody have any more issues or concerns about this? I don't think you need to go over it again unless any other board members want to. Yeah, we don't need to go over it again. I will entertain a motion.
Mr. Chairman,
Thank you, Ms. Teller.
I move to adopt the New Kent County 2023 legislative agenda as presented.
Thank you, Mr. Tiller. Any comments, questions, concerns? Not Ms. Watkins, will you poll the members, please?
Mr. Tiller?
Aye.
Ms. Page? Mr. Steers?
Aye.
Mr. Lockwood?
Aye.
And Mr. Evelyn?
Aye. Thank you, Mr. Hathaway. Our first public hearing this evening is ordinance O-23-22, application PUD-02-22, Farms of New Kent PUD amendment. Mr. Hathaway.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the board. Within the Farms of New Kent, as the housing development is progressing, the developers are starting to focus more on the commercial sections of that development. And in planning for the commercial uses, the developer has reviewed the commercial sign requirements that currently exist in the PUD. And the developer has requested and has submitted an application that would allow for modifications on specific instances of the commercial sign standards. What's being proposed here is if the existing standards did not fit a particular business that the developer has attracted to the Farms of New Kent, the developer or the potential business would have an opportunity to come before you with a conditional use permit to request an exception to those standards. So therefore, it's a case-by-case situation that would require a public hearing before the Planning Commission and Board of Supervisors for any modification to the current sign standards. Also in the proposed PUD amendment that you have before you, there are 2 changes that staff is recommending on top of allowing a conditional use permit. The first change would be the elimination of the sign criteria that limits signs to only 3 colors. We don't think in this day and time that really would lead to a negative development if a sign had more than 3 colors. The county logo would not comply with the existing sign standards. So we feel no need to limit a sign to only 3 colors. The other item that we've asked that you consider removing is a requirement that applies to gas stations, whereas we currently do not allow any logo or brand names on gas pumps or awnings. A lot of times a gas station has little control over this, especially if they're selling someone else's gas. That's usually a requirement that their brand be placed on the pumps. Again, staff has reviewed this requirement, and we don't believe that this would detract from a development by allowing logos and brands to be placed on gas pumps. So we're asking that we strike that requirement as well. And then the third requirement, as I've begun with, is the requirement that allows a developer to come before you with a use permit for an exception to any other standards that's listed in the commercial sign standards of the PUD. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Hathaway. Any questions? Ms. Tiller?
Is this just to pertain to the farms of New Kent?
This only pertains to the farms in New Kent because we're proposing to amend the PUD. Yes.
So the overlay district, Bottoms Bridge, would not be affected at all by this?
That's correct. And to that point, the farms in New Kent is not in the commercial corridor overlay district, and actually their standards are more strenuous than the current commercial standards overlay.
Mr. Steers?
Yeah, Mr. Hathaway, I thought the Farms in New Kent was also requesting a change in the height of the sign. Is that not true?
No, not at this point. But if this is passed, then the farms in New Kent would be able to come before you, or a business would be able to come before you with a conditional use permit for a modification to the existing height standards, which currently is 8 feet.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
There's six requirements on signs. So, I mean, and they pretty much can come for any of those or any other issues in that ordinance. So, and it still gives the Board of Supervisors say with the conditional use permit of any changes.
Yes.
Anybody have any other questions for Mr. Hathaway? I'll open a public hearing. Anyone signed up? No one signed up? No. I'll close the public hearing. Ms. Teller?
No other questions. I move to adopt ordinance O-23-22.
Thank you, Ms. Teller. Any comments? Ms. Watkins, will you poll the members, please?
Ms. Page? Aye. Mr. Steers?
Aye.
Mr. Lockwood?
Aye.
Mr. Tiller?
Aye.
And Mr. Evelyn?
Aye. Ordinance passes. Next public hearing this evening is ordinance O-24-22, amendment to Chapter 30, Emergency Services of the New Kent County Code. Chief Opet.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, and Mr. Hathaway. Tonight I come before you with an amendment to Chapter 30, the Emergency Services of the New Kent County Code. Section 30 of the New Kent County Ordinance, Emergency Services, was created in 2007 and has never been amended since then, since the ordinance was created 15 years ago. Since this time, the statewide fire prevention code has gone through 4 code changes. The amendments that we all have been reviewing over the past few months stem from these code updates. There is one exception, and that is in Section 3052. If you remember in the work session, there was a discussion on the open burn ordinance itself. Per the county's attorney, we reached out to the DEQ and are currently awaiting their comments and letter of approval. We hope to have something back soon per our last conversation. So tonight, you will not be voting on this section, 3052. We will bring this back to you next month or when DEQ gives us their opinion. The other amendments addresses the operational volunteer fire and EMS personnel. The summary of amendments are as follows. All operational members will become countywide volunteers under the New Kent Fire Rescue umbrella and can be placed anywhere in the county as needed. These operational members will have the same entry-level standards as the career personnel. And it's also increased the amount of required hours from 24 hours to 36 for a total of 432 hours annually. We held meetings with the volunteers tracing back to 2017 where the new training standards were introduced. Again, we met in 2018 on the training standards, giving all current volunteers 18 months to start working towards the new standard. COVID entered and everything stopped. Enter 2021, where we met again to discuss the new standards, and again this past September 26th of 2022.
All in all, our goal was to provide personnel with the same high-quality standards to your constituents, no matter if they volunteer or receive a paycheck. At this time, I will take any questions.
Thank you, Chief. Any questions for Chief Opet? Ms. Page?
What is the length of the, I mean, do they have a deadline as to when they have to complete their training? Their mandatory training?
I'm not sure I understand the question for the deadline. Back in 2018, when we first introduced, and it was basically to get their EMT certification and their firefighter 1 and fire 2. We gave them it was 18 months to at least enroll into the class and make sure that they were moving forward. Since then, obviously COVID hit, and then we came back in 2021, kind of had that same discussion to say, hey, where we're going. And then here we are back in 2022, kind of saying, okay, where are we? Here we are. They all had, in that meeting, we gave them to, I believe it was the end of October, to basically say, hey, we're interested in moving forward with you all. And we did receive some emails going forward. And we've already set some classes up here in the early year to get those folks where they need to be if they choose to continue along that line. Okay. So that's kind of where we are with that.
Okay.
All right, I'll open the public hearing. Anyone signed up?
No.
I'll close the public hearing. Any other comments or questions for Chief? Or none other than turn motion? Okay.
Yeah. Chief, I wanted to ask one thing just to clarify is that this is operational volunteer department and has nothing to do with the individuals' 501c3s or any of their fundraising or any of the money they have in their own bank accounts at this time. Is that right?
That is correct. Those individual 501c3s are on their own. They're not affiliated with New Kent Fire Rescue. However, anyone who wants to be on a piece of apparatus providing care or providing a service, emergency service, will be under the New Kent Fire Rescue umbrella.
Okay. And this wouldn't affect any of the volunteer organizations, fundraisers during the year, or Santa Claus runs, or anything like that?
What they do is their own 501c. It's up to them how they collect their money and where it goes to. That's up to them.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, and when we had that meeting with Steers, they were, I think they were all made aware of that on the, operational side. And like Chief said before, we met with them, pre-COVID, kind of went over this before. So, we've talked about this going into effect, catching up with the times for the last 5 years, probably at least.
And I know Mr. Evans, but I was absent for that meeting.
Yeah,
so
no.
I'm sorry, I didn't.
No. I think that was that's some of the questions that you bring up, some good points just to clarify it.
Okay, thank you.
Ms. Lockwood?
If there's no further discussion, make a motion. Mr. Chairman, I move to adopt ordinance O-24-22 to amend Chapter 30 of the New Kent County Code.
Thank you, Ms. Lockwood. Any other comments? Ms. Lockwood, would you poll the members, please?
Mr. Steers?
Aye.
Mr. Lockwood?
Aye.
Mr. Tiller?
Aye.
Ms. Page? And Mr. Evelyn?
Aye. Motion passes. Next item, ordinance O-21-22, FY 2022-2023 employee bonuses. Mr. Hathaway?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the board. Before you, the proposed ordinance authorizes bonuses for full and part-time employees. Per the state code, if bonuses aren't adopted as part of your annual budget and they're not budgeted, then we're required to conduct a public hearing for the approval of bonuses. What's being proposed, and really we've just matched it up with the approved bonuses that the state has approved for schools, $1,000 for full-time employees and $500 for part-time employees. Our employees have done a tremendous job this year, and we all know the difficulty in recruiting and retaining employees. Unfortunately, this labor market is so strained. We're all going after each other as far as localities, employees. I think this would be huge in employee morale, employee retention, and definitely a show of appreciation to our staff for the great job that they do. If this is approved tonight, we are prepared to implement the increases on the December 15th paycheck. And I do want to bring attention to the ordinance. The ordinance also appropriates the funding for the salary increases, not salary increases, but the bonuses, the one-time bonuses from the Colonial Downs Reserve account. And there's an amount of $280 in the appropriation. That's actually an up to amount. As we've scrubbed the list and have gone through the employee list, we believe that it's going to be less than that, about $260,000. And the increases would apply to full-time employees, but not constitutional officers, social services staff, or court services staff. No state-funded positions would be included in this. Also, it's regular part-time employees. So therefore, if you're seasonal employees, you would not be included. You would have to have worked 225 hours since January 1 to qualify for the bonus. And you would have had to be employed with New Kent County since November 1st to qualify, if you're full-time, to qualify for the bonus. So there are some requirements to receive the bonus as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hathaway. Any comments? I think we kind of discussed this as a board one-on-one. I think this is a great way to reward our employees, and because obviously it's been a tough year. Everything's more expensive for everybody, so I'm glad we were able to do this for the employees, and on behalf of the board, we thank you for all you do for the county, for us, and for the citizens that we all work for. With that, anybody have a motion?
Mr. Chair,
Ms. Page?
I move to adopt ordinance 0-21-22 to authorize and appropriate funding for an employee bonus.
Thank you, Ms. Page. Any discussion?
We need to open the public hearing.
Thank you. Somebody spoke against it? I open the public hearing. Nobody signed up. All right, I'll close the public hearing. Thank you, Sheriff. Ms. Watkins, will you poll the members?
Mr. Lockwood?
Aye.
Mr. Tiller?
Aye.
Ms. Page? Mr. Steers?
Aye.
And Mr. Evelyn?
Aye. Our last public hearing this evening, ordinance 0-22-22, extension of New Kent County's television cable franchise agreement until December 10th, 2023. Mr. Hathaway?
Did
Yeah.
we go back and vote on that? Did we vote on it? Okay.
Vote on the bonuses? Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Cool.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the board. Before you, you have ordinance 0-22-22, and this is an extension of our current franchise agreement for a period of 1 year. Our current agreement, which is a 15-year agreement, expires on December 10th, 2022. For the past 6 months at least, our focus with Cox has been the countywide broadband expansion plan. Therefore, this has kind of taken a second seat. knowing that we had this option to do a temporary extension, we really want to focus, and we are focusing on getting the countywide broadband project up and running. As you know, with that project, you adopted and you approved an agreement in September of this year. They've been working steadily in finalizing the engineering design, permitting, and right-of-way acquisition so that they can begin construction in early 2023. So therefore, with all that going on, we're requesting to extend the franchise agreement. And we have a lot of negotiating to do with our current franchise agreement. This isn't a process that we wanted to rush. There's some things in our existing agreement that we at least want to talk about with Cox. So I am asking that we adopt this ordinance to extend our current agreement for 1 year.
Thank you, Mr. Hathaway. Any comments? I'll open the public hearing. Anyone signed up? No one signed up? Close the public hearing.
Mr. Chairman, I just would like to make a comment. I think it is actually pretty good that we wait a year on this. It'll give us a chance to see how we combine both fiber and cable and maybe make a little bit more effective agreement once we've got a little bit of time under our belt with the other side of things.
Totally agree with you.
If there's no further discussion, I'd like to make excuse me, ma'am.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, ma'am.
I'm in agreement with Supervisor Lockwood and yourself. However, I do feel as if we need to make sure that this extension does not mean that the company that we're negotiating with does not move with a sense of urgency. And so if we could be very clear on that, I mean, we'll extend it. We need to get the negotiations done, but people need broadband. And so I want us to do, to continue to be good stewards, but I need them to move with a sense of urgency.
Yes, yes. And just for the public that's watching too, we are not extending the broadband expansion project for 1 year. That project is moving forward. This is only the franchise agreement that regulates cable television. But broadband expansion is our first and foremost priority right now.
If there's no further discussion, Mr. Chairman, I move to adopt ordinance O-22-22 to authorize the extension of the term of New Kent County's cable franchise agreement with Cox Communications of Hampton Roads LLC until December 10th, 2023 to allow for continued negotiations.
Thank you, Ms. Lockwood. Ms. Watkins, will you poll the members, please?
Mr. Tiller?
Aye.
Ms. Page? Aye. Mr. Steers?
Aye.
Mr. Lockwood?
Aye.
And Mr. Evans?
Aye. All right. Do elected officials reports last. Let's go to staff reports. Mr. Hathaway.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I do have one item. And this is a request that Mr. Evans and I received this week from our juvenile and domestic relations court staff. Our JDR courts, district courts, were just notified last week that the Supreme Court of Virginia has approved an additional staff person for their office, which is very much needed.
Therefore, with the additional staff person, our clerk of that court is requesting funding for a desk, a chair, and a telephone. The telephone, there's no cost for that. We have spare telephones that they can use. But our clerk has received pricing on a desk, and there's a picture of it. It matches their standard office furniture, and quotes for a chair as well, totaling $6,200. What I'm requesting is that be transferred from the reserve for contingency fund to the court's furniture and fixture line item. And you also have a copy of the quote also that was received from, I believe, JMJ. Yes, JMJ Workplace Interiors, which is a familiar firm that the county uses, and they're also on state contract.
Did we not get a ton of new or light new furniture when when Plan RVA moved?
We got all kinds of furniture, but as far as a complete desk set, that hasn't been claimed, I don't think we have anything that's left. As you're aware, when Plan RVA made their existing office available, we sent that around to all the different departments, and there was some nice furniture there, and that was claimed pretty quickly.
Okay.
Very nice furniture pieces.
Just checking.
Anybody have any other comments?
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir, Mr. Steele.
I mean, really? $6,200 for a chair and a desk?
Well, actually, $6,200, yes, for chair and desk.
A chair and a desk.
Yes.
And you can go many, many places and buy chairs and desks. It doesn't have to match, you know. They're not going to be viewed by Southern Living next weekend to see how they look in the office. I mean, I think that's just a waste of money for that kind of. You can go to Office Max and get that same outfit for probably $2,000.
We had
Oh, no.
We had another department that when they moved, they got furniture from somewhere else.
There's a company called TPC. I think that's the name of it. They're in Ashland. And they resell used office equipment. I think what the clerks was trying to do was get furniture, get the same furniture they already have in their suite. If we want to go back and tell them to look at the used, the resale market at TPC, we can do that. I can definitely communicate that to the clerk. But I believe the intent is to match their suite with the existing furniture.
Look over here.
I know office furniture is expensive. I mean, that sounds high, but I'll pick my battles. That's not one of them.
I just asked, maybe you can take that picture to them, and I had something like that. I can't believe I'm agreeing with Mrs. Spears, but.
It's not all bad.
You just call the National Weather Service, make sure they won't. Well,
I just
because I'm just thinking of timing, because they do have a new person that's about to start.
What's the name of the furniture store in downtown Richmond or South Side?
Oh, that's
Wholesale.
another resale.
Hall
Hall
Street
Street
outlet.
outlet, yeah.
I mean, I know some of those.
We've
stuffs
not
are-
purchased much from them, but the store in Ashland is very similar.
Right.
And I believe they're on state contract too, so
Right.
we utilize them frequently.
Some of those desks you buy like $1,000, $2,000, $3,000, they fall right apart too. I mean, we bought some. Yeah, wait. But
I believe they're advertising the position right now. They were awarded the position, I believe December 2nd was the official award date, and they advertised it.
So they don't have anybody as of yet.
Not right now.
Mr. Stewart, you can go shopping.
They've got time to go shopping.
do you want to give them amount to approve on the amount? Not to exceed?
Anything less than 6,200. No,
Careful what you say.
no, I mean, it's, I mean, I think they could find something for half that, really. I think. Quality stuff.
We checked with a place in Ashland, but they don't have anything similar because they have a picture to go by. And
Check with RVA. Check with that RVA again.
Well,
Or did
all
we?
their stuff is gone.
That's gone.
I think they moved into their new facility.
yes, Lord,
About
don't
to.
you talk about it.
I bet they spent that much on a desk.
So what's your number?
Well, that is a question. I mean, because we don't meet again until, I believe, January 8th or 9th, is there a level that you feel comfortable with authorizing?
What about, we're continuing this meeting until, can we-
Thursday?
Thursday.
Probably.
Maybe get some quotes or something. I mean, just, it wouldn't hurt. At least we'll know if we're, out in left field or not on a price.
Well, and that should give the clerk enough time to ride up to Ashland.
Are you all right with
to
that? Let them look
see.
at Thursday? Make a decision on Thursday?
Yes, yes.
All right.
Okay. And I have one other item. Speaking of Thursday, we're negotiating a contract with Mosley Architects for the renovation of the historic school. We did not get that contract in from Mosley in time to present that to you today. If it's okay, and if we get it in by Thursday, I'd like to present that to you on Thursday as well, so we can get that project moving.
Sounds good.
Okay, all right, thank you.
I know in other business, we need to set a date for our January meeting. We said,
Consent.
oh, consent. Well,
It does this year.
tonight. Okay.
Playoff.
I was just reading the thing, it said held to be a time to this meeting. Okay. All right, appointments delegated by district. Anybody have any? Ms. Lockwood?
Let's see, I move to appoint Doug Kraft as District 5 representative to the Lee County Committee to serve a 4-year term beginning January 1, 2023 and ending December 31st, 2026. And Mr. Kraft will be replacing Erlene Leary, who has served that community well for a number of years, and she's decided to not go for another term. So look forward to Mr. Kraft and wish Ms. Leary well. I move to appoint Martin Bennett as District 5 representative to the Planning Commission to serve a 4-year term beginning January 1st, 2023 and ending December 31st, 2026. That's all I have right now.
Anybody else have any?
Mr. Chairman,
Ms. Teller?
I move to appoint John Moyer as District 2 Representative to the Planning Commission to serve a 4-year term beginning January 1st, 2023, and ending December 31st, 2026.
All right, anyone else?
Yes.
Go ahead.
Ms. Steers?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I have several. I move to appoint William E. Mountcastle as District 4 Representative to the Agriculture and Forestry District Advisory Committee to serve a 4-year term beginning January 1, 2023 and ending December 31, 2026. I also move to appoint Margaret Pomfrey as District 4 Alternate Representative to the Historical Commission to complete a 4-year term ending December 31, 2025. I move to appoint James Wallace as District 4 Representative to the Purchase of Development Rights Committee to serve a 3-year term beginning July 1, 2022 and ending June 30th, 2025. I move to appoint Dr. Joanne Smith as District 4 Representative to the Planning Commission to serve a 4-year term beginning January 1, 2023, ending December 31, 2026. I move to appoint Bobby Wegley as a District 4 Representative to the Board of Road Reviewers to serve a 4-year term beginning January 1, 2023, and ending December 31, 2026. I move to appoint Kenneth Hislop as District 4 Representative to the Transportation Safety Commission to serve a 4-year term beginning January 1, 2023, ending December 31, 2026. I move to appoint Gene Street as District 4 Representative to the Wetlands Board, Chesapeake Bay Preservation Board, and the Dunes and Beaches Board to serve a 5-year term beginning January 1, 2023, and ending December 31, 2027. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Page?
I move to appoint Katisha Thomas as District 3 Representative to the Planning Commission to serve a 4-year term beginning January 1st, 2023, ending December 31st, 2026. I move to appoint Larry O. Christian as District 3 Representative to the Board of Road Viewers to serve a 4-year term beginning January 1st, 2023, ending December 31st, 2026. That's all I have, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. And I move to appoint Laura Rose as District 1's representative to the Planning Commission to serve a 4-year term beginning January 1, 2023, and ending December 31st, 2026.
Mr. Chairman, if I actually have a couple more.
Okay, Mr. Blackwood.
Let's see. I move to appoint Theron Cowles as District 5 Representative to the Historic Commission to serve a 4-year term beginning January 1, 2023, ending December 31st, 2026. And I move to appoint Joanne White as District 5 Alternate Representative to the Historic Commission to serve a 4-year term beginning January 1, 2023, and ending December 31st, 2026. And if I may, Ms. Watkins, I have a question about Joe Davis on the Planning Commission. On our appointment schedule, it shows his term expiring this year, but on the roster for the Planning Commission, it shows his term expiring 2024. Okay, then I'll just wait until January if we need to make that appointment again. Is there any conflict with that, with the planning?
No, they
commission?
meet after we do anyway.
And he continues to serve until his successor is appointed, so.
Okay, then we're good. Thank you.
All right. Ms. Watkins, will you poll the members on appointments delegated by districts?
Ms. Page? Aye. Mr. Steers?
Aye.
Mr. Lockwood?
Aye.
Mr. Tiller?
Aye.
And Mr. Evelyn?
Aye. Next, appointments not delegated by district.
Mr. Chair. I move to appoint Donald Morgenhauer as a at-large representative to the Historic Commission to serve a 4-year term beginning January 1st, 2023, ending December 31st, 2026. And I move to appoint Jackie Randall as an at-large representative to Parks and Recs Advisory Commission to serve a 3-year term beginning January 1st, 2023, ending December 31st, 2025. Donald, Mollenhauer, Morgenhauser. And I move to appoint Colin Smolnick as a youth member of the New Kent County Community Service Committee to serve a 1-year term expiring December 31st, 2023. Also move to appoint, no, that's it. That's it. I'm finished, Mr. Chair.
Anybody else have anything?
I move to appoint Sarah Swartout as youth member of the New Kent Youth Community Service Committee to serve a 1-year term ending December 31st, 2023. I do have another person that would like to be appointed to that committee as well. I don't know that I have any more appointments available, because I have a couple people that are currently serving that I've reached out to but haven't had a response yet. So I know we have some openings on that board. Does it really matter who appoints them?
So you could appoint someone else.
I know we had some other openings, though, that were never filled, so is it all right for me to fill one of those? Okay.
It's two.
He has 3. He's got 2 that he's waiting to hear back from.
Yeah, I've already got
One he just reappointed.
Yeah, let's check on that.
All right, I'll get back on that one then.
I move to appoint Martha Martin as an at-large representative to the Historic Commission to serve a 4-year term beginning January 1, 2023 and ending December 31st, 2026. There's no other appointments. Ms. Watkins, will you call the roll on appointments not delegated by districts, please?
Mr. Steers?
Aye.
Mr. Lockwood?
Aye.
Mr. Tiller?
Aye.
Ms. Page? And Mr. Evelyn?
Aye. Next is regional boards and commissions.
Mr. Chair, since I think that other than maybe 3 other representatives serve on that, can we wait until December?
We can wait till January.
I mean
that's what-
January.
I think that's what, historically, that's what we've done. I'm good with that. The rest of the board is okay with that.
Thank you, sir.
All right. With that, next, our last item tonight is the elected officials report. Mr. Steers?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. Last Thursday, I convened a meeting with our newest business in New Kent County, Churchill Downs, along with Mr. Evelyn, Mr. Hathaway, Mr. Smolnick, and we met with the representatives from Churchill Downs to get their short-term plans and long-term plans. Basically, all I can say right now is the short-term plans, since they've only owned the business for a month, is they want to expand the number of HHR racing machines throughout Rosie's, which have to be approved or not approved by the General Assembly. A couple of positive notes is they want to extend the racing season this year, upcoming year, to 30 days, and they're planning on changing the dates from Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday to Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. So those were a couple positive things that came out of it. As far as any long-term goals, We hashed out several things, made some suggestions and everything, but no commitments at this time. And then yesterday we had the Promise Forge Christmas Parade. Thanks to everybody in the county. I think everybody was there. If you weren't, I don't know where you were, because there was the largest parade we've ever had. And thanks to the sheriff and Lee Bailey for their assistance in the traffic control. I mean, everything ran like a sewing machine, and we had well over 230 entries. To give an example, one entry was 25 Mustangs. So you can imagine how long this parade was. But it was a great event, the largest we've had, great weather, and just wish all of you county employees, all of our citizens, Merry Christmas, and look forward to seeing you back here again after the first year. And thank you, Mr. Smith, for being here.
Mr. Tiller?
Mayor, what Mr. Steers just said about the county employees and all of our residents, hope you all have a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year, and look forward to seeing y'all back.
Mr. Lockwood?
I would just echo that sentiment. 'Tis the season, and I hope everybody has a chance to enjoy it with family and friends. And Merry Christmas, Happy New Year, and we'll see you soon.
Ms. Page?
Yes, sir. Tomorrow, I wanted to make sure that everyone knows that at the New Kent Visitor Center at 5, between 5 and 7, that VDOT will be holding their public hearing, and the public hearing is on their plan and design for I-64 widen. So you have the opportunity to come out and voice your opinion. They'll have charts and different displays for you to look at and voice your opinion and your concerns on them. So this is your opportunity to use your voice. I ask that you would do that on tomorrow. I'm quite sure they'll have several more, but this is, excuse me, the first one. Second of all, would absolutely thank you with the greatest amount of gratitude and for your get well wishes and for your birthday wishes and all of your prayers. Just know that when you're made of tough skin, sometimes you fall down, but you always get up. And so fortunately for some of you, maybe unfortunately for others, you're going to have to put up with me for a long, long time. So I ask that you continue to keep the prayers coming, and then especially during this time of the season, I ask that we love up on those that may have loved ones that will not be here for this Christmas season. It's a hard season, so I ask that we continue to love up on them, that we continue to be kind, and that we have a wonderful and a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ms. Page. Just follow up, wishing all the citizens out there Merry Christmas, Happy New Year. Staff, thanks so much. This has been a crazy couple years for sure, and especially this last year, we've had a lot going on in the county. New Kent is growing. Each department has been asked and tasked to do a lot more with the same amount of people, pretty much keeping on the same budgets. Y'all do a great job with that, and I would just like to thank my fellow board members for all the support that you've given me over this last year and helping move the county forward as a team. I think we've done a good job. So with that, Merry Christmas, Happy New Year. And if nobody has anything else?
Motion to adjourn.
No, we'll continue.
Oh, continue. Motion to continue.
Yeah. So the next regular scheduled meeting of the Board of Supervisors will be held at 6 p.m. on Monday, January 9th in the boardroom of the County Administration Building. The board will also meet for a joint meeting with the Economic Development Authority at 8:30 on Thursday, December 15, 2022 at the New Kent Visitor Center of Commerce on 7324 Vineyards Parkway, New Kent. And we will have no December work session. So Mr. Tiller has a motion for continuation. Ms. Watkins, will you poll the members?
Mr. Tiller?
Aye.
Ms. Page? Mr. Steers?
Aye.
Mr. Lockwood?
Aye.
and Mr. Evelyn.
Aye. Continued.